We're going to talk about a new article regarding Walt Hopkins and his tenure with the New York Liberty. We're going to talk about South Carolina versus Duke, two USA basketball coaches of the year in 3x3, and of course with the women's national team, respectively. And I'm going to start the show the same way I've basically started the last handful of shows, talking about the coaching situation for the New York Liberty. This time we're talking about Becky Hammon. Oh, yeah.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, women's basketball fans, welcome to another episode of Locked On Women's Basketball. I am your host, Erica Lindsay Ayala. Thank you so much for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen of the day. Before we get into the episode, I want to let you know I had a planning meeting about the show yesterday. I thought it went swimmingly. Cannot wait to give you some updates, but we gotta let some of what we're cooking simmer for a little bit. But right now, we're gonna talk about that Becky Hammon. She made some comments to the amazing LaChina Robinson regarding her future plans. So, yeah, we're going to start right there. But I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by Truebill. Truebill is the new app that saves you money by helping identify and stop paying for the subscriptions that you don't want, you don't need, and you can't even remember that you have. You can also negotiate better deals on those subscriptions that you do want. So keep posted for more info about Truebill. But right now, I want to talk about Becky Hammon. Yes, I know. I'm stuck on this New York Liberty coaching situation. As I mentioned, we're going to talk later on in the show about an article because it's spawned an entire show worth of breaking down the history of the New York Liberty, because I just get the sense that some of y'all have forgotten. Some of y'all have forgotten some things. So anyway, we're going to get to that. Right now, let's talk about Becky Hammon. So as part of the Breakthrough Summit that happened yesterday, LaChina Robinson has hosted a handful of these panels with the Breakthrough organization. Check in the show notes for more details on that organization. But right now, I'm going to play you a clip of LaChina Robinson talking to Becky Hammon and straight up asking her about the New York Liberty coaching role. I need you to hear what Becky Hammon said, because yeah, I'm excited.
The New York Liberty job comes open. Do you even blink? Like, is that something, like, I know you still have a strong connection to the women's game. Like, is that something where you sit up straight when you find out that they're looking for a new head coach?
Absolutely. My doors are open. And I don't look at the WNBA. A lot of people would say, oh, I've never closed the door on coming back to the women either. Like, to me, how could I? That's my heart. That's my roots. And so I never closed the door on any opportunity. And so if I went back to the WNBA, don't blink, because I don't look at it as a step back, or, no, it's not. It's a change of direction. It's a pivot. But it's basketball. I'm telling you, it's the same stuff. It's pick and rolls. It's defense. The basketball is pretty much the same. I mean, except for like dunks. I mean, other than that, it's very similar. It's basketball. It's the foot, and the basket is 10 foot. There's 5 players on each team, and we go out and get after it. So yeah, don't be surprised.
Well,
I keep my doors open.
And every time you and I get together, I'm going to be asking that question. I feel like it always comes down because I just want it to be out in the environment, in the atmosphere. You heard what Becky said. Her doors are open because we would love to welcome you back to the women's game. But what you're doing on the men's side is important as well.
Listen. I talked about this, 2 shows ago? I told y'all, Becky Hammon is the best choice. If all choices are on the table, Becky Hammon is the best choice for this New York Liberty squad. We're done. We're done with the hybrid rebuild or whatever the F. We're done with looking to make the draft a lottery. We're done with that. And so there is a story on Winsider. While the essence of the story I agreed with, I think some of the conclusions were a little bit too gracious. But I'm one of the people that was on the New York Liberty beat that was pretty much consistently being like, everyone's cool. I have nothing against these people individually, but as a collective, for the vision and what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, they clash. I wasn't drinking the Kool-Aid. I did write a story, I've talked about this before, about how the New York Liberty, I thought the most the most promise that the New York Liberty showed was at the end of the season. And it wasn't even making the playoffs, although that playoff game was extremely exciting, but it was the bounce back after defeat and the ownership and the taking responsibility. That's what I was hearing in a way that I hadn't heard it before. And that was right after Teaspoon came and talked to the New York Liberty. Now, I wasn't in the room, but I think Teaspoon and I have something in common in where we're going to lift you up, but we might cut you at the knee. We might clip you a little bit if you need to be clipped, because you're hanging on to something that's no good for you. You're hanging on to something that needs to go by the wayside. Can I get an amen? You're hanging on to something and you're talking in a way that is incongruent with how you act. Preach. Let's go. Okay, so I got to break this New York Liberty. There's a lot in here right now when it comes to the New York Liberty. I have not liked the conversation around the New York Liberty in the last handful of years. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little old school or whatever you want to call it, but maybe that's what New York needs is bring that old school back, because ever since Bill left and even before then, and you can check the record, you go ahead and talk to the New York Liberty beat. They will let you know this ain't a Walt Hopkins problem. This ain't a Katie Smith problem. This is a New York Liberty problem, and somehow has crossed over as even the team now has different ownership. New York Liberty got some things to handle. And I'm going to dedicate at least one episode very soon to that. But coming up next, NCAA. Okay. You want to talk about coaches? Kara Lawson versus Dawn Staley. The South Carolina Gamecocks at Duke. That's what's coming up next. We're going to talk about a little bit about the NCAA matchups, particularly Duke, South Carolina at Duke. And then we're going to get you ready because there's some big appointment watching when it comes to NCAA coming up this weekend. And I don't want you to miss any of the games. So we're going to do the schedule rundown. That's what's coming up next. So here's the thing. You might have heard about the Prize Picks It's part of our sponsorship deal here, but have you signed up yet? Prize Picks is it's daily fantasy made easy. If you have not checked it out, you're missing out. I'm telling you, you're going to love this app for the NBA in particular and the Christmas Day games. I know that's something that a lot of people do. Christmas Day games are going to be off the charts and even more fun if you play Prize Picks. So how does it work? Prize Picks has the best NBA DFS prop game on the market. It offers more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator and offers all the superstar players as well as bench players, only recording a handful of minutes each game. So you're not limited. You're not limited to what you have access to. All of the users that deposit and use the promo code I'm about to give you will receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. All you got to do is use promo code NBA and you'll receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100. So we want you to go to prizepick.com today, use promo code NBA, and get your $100 and go check out the best DFS prop operator, of course, that is Prize Picks. Good luck. As always, want to thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball part of your daily listening journey. I'm your host, Erica Lindsay Ayala. Now, I got excited about my girl, Becky Hammon, coming to the New York Liberty as the coach. Honestly, unless she don't want the job, which she told us that she wants the job, unless she don't want the job, New York, y'all better figure it out. Y'all better figure it out. Find that money. Let's go, Clara Wu and Joe Tsai. Let's go. Where the money reside. Get it from Becky Hammon. But like I said, we are going to switch gears a little bit here. Talk about South Carolina, number 1 South Carolina at 15 Duke on the road. Now, this game, we weren't expecting Duke to necessarily, come through and make it interesting. There were times that South Carolina was just picking Duke apart, going down the court, nobody picking up the post, nobody picking up the post player. We see, guards though taking Aaliyah Boston to the hole. So it was an exciting game, although ultimately it wasn't necessarily a nail biter. South Carolina did get the win over Duke 55-46. As I mentioned, it was Dawn Staley of South Carolina coaching Kara Lawson of the Duke Blue Devils. Now, both of these coaches, respectively, were honored by USA Basketball for the 3x3 Coach of the Year, Kara Lawson. First ever 3x3 medal in the Olympics. Kara Lawson was the bench boss for that. Obviously, a historic moment for women's basketball 3x3. And Dawn Staley, she's been a part of gold medal winning teams as a player, as an assistant coach, and she got her gold as a head coach. We've talked about it before, but Dawn Staley will not be continuing on as head coach of USA Basketball. She basically alluded to that towards the end of the Olympics. Then she quasi walked it back. Either way, Cheryl Reeve is going to be the new head coach. It's really hard for me to, first of all, as I said on that podcast episode where we talked about this about a week ago now, I'm so excited for Cheryl Reeve. I think this is going to be fantastic. That being said, when you have Dawn Staley and you let Dawn Staley walk out the door, I have questions, USAB. I have questions. And again, the secrecy or the lack of transparency when it comes to their selection process, still something that we're going to talk about. I know Carol's gone, but what's the process? Let us know. Folks, inquiring minds want to know. I went on a bit of a rant there, but I know you're used to it. So here's what we got. Number 2, NC State hosting Georgia. That's going to be a good one. That's tonight, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Arizona and Northern Arizona. you're going to hit the court tomorrow, Friday. Now, here's what we got. Number 3, Stanford at number 7, Tennessee. That's going to be a really good one. And then, of course, you've got, oh, baby, Louisville, number 6, against UConn, number 7. That's Sunday, December 19th. Not going to want to miss that. Also, Virginia, talking about, teams that didn't play, talking about former WNBA coaches. You've got Tina Thompson, the signature red lip head coach of Virginia, taking on NC State. That's Sunday, December 19th at 3 p.m. Let's go. Actually, I don't know if these are Eastern times. Now that I think about it. Come on, Louisville versus UConn. Come on, Stanford, Tennessee. Let's go. We've got pretty exciting action. I want to take you to something that Michelle Vopel wrote earlier this week. It is entitled for ESPN Women's College Basketball Power Ranking, which undefeated teams are NCAA title contenders. Now, some of this has probably changed, but here we go. Arizona and Tennessee, contenders. Not quite there yet. Duke and North Carolina. I think that's fair. I think it's fair to grade Duke and North Carolina as not quite there yet. But these are ACC teams, 2 teams that used to be, as Michelle Vopel writes, in the most elite, most powerful 2 teams in the ACC. But now you're seeing things change. The tide is changing in the ACC. The Blue Devils' biggest win so far this season was over then number 9 Iowa on December 2nd. The Tar Heels don't have a victory over a ranked team and likely won't have a chance until they face number 2 NC State on January 6th. Oh, that's going to be a good one. Candace, I don't know where you at, sis. Locked on ACC. I'm going to have to get you on Locked on WBB because we're going to have to talk about that game right there. Blue Devils versus NC State on January 6th. Oh, yeah. I want a squad cast, fam. I want a squad cast. Let's go. Also love that, speaking of me not being on the East Coast anymore, I also love this looking to contend in their conferences because you've got Cleveland State, Coastal Carolina. When I used to play sports, because I don't really do that anymore. But when I used to play college sports, we used to play Coastal Carolina in our preseason. The Chanticleers, love that. Always reminds me of that movie, Rock-a-Doodle-Doo. Anyone? Come on. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. Anyway, that's not why I like this, but Tulsa was picked to finish 9th in the American Athletic Conference, AAC. That's where UConn used to be. And then Michelle Vopel writes, but the Golden Hurricane are off to a school record 8-0 start. Tulsa has made 2 NCAA tournament appearances, the most recent in 2013. And hey, I'm right here in Tulsa. So I might have to mosey on down and check out the Tulsa women's basketball program. Coastal Carolina was picked 11th in the Sun Belt, Michelle Vopel writes, but an 8-0 start has its best start in program history. Go Chanticleers. The Chanticleers have never been to the NCAA tournament, but they might have made it in 2020 had the COVID-19 pandemic not canceled the postseason. Oh, we got some goods. NCAA action. I've got my games circled for the weekend, so we'll be sure to talk about that next week on Locked On Women's Basketball. But coming up next, I'm going back. I know. I want to talk about this article because it's going to be the precursor to my full-on rant about New York Liberty history. The New York Liberty history. Yeah, that's what we're doing. That's what's coming up next on Locked On Women's Basketball. But I told you early on the show about Truebill. And Truebill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions you don't need, you don't want, or you simply forgot about. Free trials renew without your consent. That's a scam. It's a business scam that's out to get you. And Truebill doesn't want that for you. They want you to live your best life. On average, people save up to $120 a year using Truebill because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel. Truebill makes it incredibly simple. And your Truebill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions so you don't have to. So don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. Go right now to truebill.com/LockedOnNBA. It could save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/NBA. I hope you know where the money resides. The money needs to reside in your pocket. So make sure you use Truebill. New York Liberty. They have some money in pocket. They have a salary cap that they can work with, but they're out a bench boss. Walt Hopkins is out. Now, what I haven't mentioned, and we saw this when Katie Smith her contract was not renewed, but we saw that her staff, her assistant coaching staff, was also, their contracts were not renewed. So what does that mean for Dustin Gray, Jackie Gemellos, or Shelly Patterson? Who knows? Can one of them be a contender? Potentially. I think Shelly Patterson, as our good man Geoff Magliochetti writes in his piece that we're about to get into right now, Patterson has the best chance from those three, in my opinion. But as I said earlier on the show, nobody stands a chance for this coaching role if Becky Hammon is available. On period. That's it. That is the pick. We want to go back to, Los Angeles Sparks 1 of 1. While I do not condone that process, everybody else is going to have to they're batting up because Becky is no joke. And I'm going to let y'all know why. But right now I want to talk about Walt Hopkins. Geoff Magliochetti. Love Geoff Magliochetti, part of the New York Liberty beat. I've had him on Spotify Green Room before for this very show. Always a good time. But my man Geoff, I can't agree with you on some of this article here. Hopkins understood the assignment. He knew that wins were going to come beyond the standings column, and they arrived in the form of on-court development. Like his predecessor, Katie Smith, Hopkins had to deal with calamities beyond his control, namely the injury to Sabrina Ionescu, which cut short one of the most anticipated rookie seasons in league history. The Liberty's international friends from Australia and France, Rebecca Allen and Marie Johannes, also opted out due to COVID-19, which claimed Asia Durr directly. She did not pass, but she was affected as a long hauler. Geoff didn't write that. I just felt that we needed to add that. In retrospect, here we go. In retrospect, the Liberty's scorching 5-1 start to the 21 season was perhaps one of the worst, for lack of a better term, things that could have happened to the franchise. The first stanza's ending, during which a returning Ionescu sank the game-winning shot in the team's Brooklyn debut, would have been rejected by major movie studios for lacking subtlety. It perhaps raised expectations a little too fast. Even though the Liberty ended their playoff drought, the true progress came in the WNBA's all-rookie listings, which featured Onyenwere and Richards, Jasmine Jones, and the final pick of the 2020's first round also made great strides during the Liberty's 2021 campaign. I believe strongly that the best pieces of the New York Liberty were at the end of their season. As I told you, after they lost that game to Phoenix, they lost again to Phoenix, but they played a lot better in a short, 2-day swing or something like that. The 5-1 start was exciting, but I'm pretty sure if you listen back or you find my tweets, I'm pretty sure I was telling you that it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. And granted, I was the one out here. I do know that I was out here, talking about Benai Jelani for the MVP conversation. And here's the thing: when your MVP conversation starts at the second game of the season, then yeah, Benai Jelani deserved to be in the MVP conversation at that time. Arguably, Brittany Griner did not, although Griner ended up being a top contender for the MVP when, for most people, Benai Jelani was not. I never liked this New York Liberty squad. I didn't like the COVID, Sabrina Ionescu goes down, all of those things. Sure, Walt Hopkins could not control, but let's stop making excuses, baby. What's the phrase? If life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. You don't hold out for an old fashioned. That's what I feel like was happening here. There was a stubbornness and an insistence on using a system that you didn't have the personnel for. You just didn't, my man. I don't like that. I never liked that. I had problems with that. So I'm not going to sit here, and I have no reason to, bash Walt Hopkins that I know of. I think he's an okay guy. Didn't like this philosophy. Have said on the record that I felt that the insistence on sticking to the philosophy, even though the key elements were no longer there, like after a while, you can't keep saying that you're making a pie if you don't have the crust. You don't have a pie tin. You don't have a stove. You're not making pie anymore. Maybe, if you're lucky, you're making baked apples. If you're lucky. Because sometimes the 2020 season was basically, he wasn't even making baked apples. He was just chomping on them things raw. Like, no heat, no water, no pot, no apple pie. No. There's a saying that people don't often use, but winners are quitters. Winners know when to cut the cord and move in a different direction. It doesn't mean you never come back to that, but you got to work with what you got, baby. New York Liberty didn't like it. So we need a veteran coach. Becky Hammon has never been a head coach for an entire season, at least not a full season. Although the summer league season is a quarter of the WNBA season? Snark aside, you get what I'm saying. Becky Hammon has experience. She knows the WNBA. She knows basketball. She's been a protege of Popovich since she was playing in San Antonio. That's the type of first-time head coach experience that the New York Liberty need. And to prove it, I am going to walk through the New York Liberty head coaches and general managers over the entire franchise history and explain to you why, as a New York Liberty fan and now as someone that covers the sport, I am absolutely baffled by what this team and what this franchise has been doing for the last 25 seasons. It truly is not a surprise that they are an original franchise without a championship, because what in the heck? Great players, great rosters. Dolan, baby, what you doing? That's a topic for another day. That's all we have for this episode of Locked On Women's Basketball. As always, thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Now it's time for you to check out the Locked On Bets podcast with your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. Hey, and if hockey is your vibe and you want to hear me talk about another team that wasn't really built in a way that's necessarily going to let them win, go listen to Locked On Kraken. As always, I am your host, Erica Lindsay Ayala. We are here to talk about not just WNBA Twitter, but WBB Twitter. Let's get it poppin'. I'll catch you next week.